let me just say thanks to you for the invite. I was very honored to have been invited to speak to amazing women across Memphis and the surrounding areas. This is super exciting for me, one, because it comes on the heels of a promotion, which, you know, for my topic talks specifically about highly successful women. So we're going to have some fun today and really do some really good stuff around things that I believe are important to me. Again, I'm Leslie Coleman, Vice President, Head of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for Nutrien. Started with the organization just a little under 6 weeks ago. So this is quite a treat to come and headline not only for Nutrien, but also as a stepping point for myself. So next slide, are we ready? Okay, all right, so today we're here to talk through this topic could not have come at a better time. One, we see a shift in the environment, specifically as it relates to women. We are on the rise. If you look at the census data, it shows that there are about 30% women available in the workforce, and that is a really good thing. Why? Because we are rising up the chart. And so I want to talk today about some of those characteristics. I want to get your thoughts on those things that you feel are important in your career journey. But first, I'm going to give you 10 of those things I think are extremely critical when you think about climbing the career ladder. And I'll talk specifically about my climb as we go through the slides. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's have some fun. So today I'm going to do a quick introduction, and again, it's going to talk about who I am, what's important to me. I'm going to go through about 10 different characteristics of highly successful women. And then at the end of this, guys, the moral of the story is it's personal. So this has to be a personal journey for you if you are interested in joining the league, okay? And then we'll have a brief Q&A question session to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is where the fun began. So introducing myself, I am an identical twin, born and raised on a small farm. I'm the mother of two. I'm a Razorback, so I can beat the best of them calling the hogs. I'm an HR professional for over 25 years, publisher of research, and that research is in self-theories, and it's an author by the name of Carol Dweck. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, it's out there. I'm an adjunct professor. My son plays football for the Naval Academy. He's number 77. Big Luke is about 6'4", 294 pounds, and hopefully this year he will be starting. So if I have some football fans out there who does follow college football, he is one to look at. And then finally, again, I have an identical twin. I say that often because I will see folks, and I know we can't see each other in person, but I will see folks out in public, and they'll ask me, "Hey, do you remember me?" And it's always a twin story. So I wanted to share that with you before you see her. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's talk through again some of those things that matter to me. Okay, so on the left you have my son who's 14 years old. His name is Lane Coleman. Lane is about 6'4", 260 pounds. And I give you his size because he is just a baby, but he is as tall as a real little man. So I'm very proud of Lane. He models and acts. Just actually had an opportunity to do some Discovery Talent work yesterday. So I'm very proud of my little Lane. Again, he's 14 years of age. And then the other part of that is Navy. So Navy is a big part of our family. So my son had an opportunity to play in the Army-Navy game. And boy, was that the best opportunity any kid could ever experience. So as most of you know, the President of the United States actually attends that game every year, and so does the Vice President and some of his staff members. So my son has an opportunity, and twice over, to shake the hand of the President of the United States. So Navy is near and dear to our hearts. Now, I'll be honest with you, when he was signing up for this, we didn't really know that it was military because he received a full football scholarship. However, getting into the academy, and I'm certain most of you know this as well, it's very, very high. So they accept about 1,000 folks per year. The grade point average has to be very high, and also your ACT, SAT scores, as well as some recommendations from your congressmen and senators. So it's a very rigorous process. It's very tough, a very difficult environment to get in and stay in. And he's still there. So you guys keep your fingers crossed for me and that little, that big boy of mine, Luke Coleman. And then second from the right, you'll see his coach, Coach Ingram. And why I bring Coach Ingram up is he's been such an instrumental part of my son's life, but also as a part of our family. Literally, he has taken on the responsibility of a mentor for my child, and I am thoroughly enjoying the relationship that they have started. So more to come on that. I'll keep you posted. Okay, next slide. All right. So this really takes me into the importance of the topic today. The lady that you see over to the left is my mother, Lainey Ruth Swanigan. She passed away March 8th, 2019 from breast cancer, and it was a surprise to the family. My mother is the pillar of strength in the community, pillar of strength in, of course, in our family, and we were not aware of it. So it took us it really took our feet from under us. But on the day that she passed away is also International Women's Day. It's the day that we celebrate all around the world amazing women. So my story in diversity and inclusion could not get deeper. But I also want to share with you that as I was 3 months of age, I was adopted by my mother, the one that you see in the picture. But prior to the time that she adopted myself and my sister, who were just these two little black bald-headed babies, we were fed by what was called back then a wet nurse. And this was, of course, in 1970. So I'm going to give you a setting so that you understand why this is important as well. So it's 1970. You think about it, still segregation. Jim Crow laws are very strong, still very alive and well. And you're in the heart of the civil rights movement. Of course, at this point, Dr. Martin Luther King had been assassinated, and just a number of other events had occurred at this point. We were chosen by a wet nurse from the Salvation Army, which, is another story. But this wet nurse just happened to be white. Now, I gave you the setting for that because I want you to understand the sacrifice and the risk that she took taking two twin babies from an orphanage and supporting them until we were adopted by my parents. And so I say that because, of course, right now my field, the work that I do is in the diversity and inclusion space. And my story just gets deeper. But the best part about that is, what if I had chosen to be a racist? What would that say for me now that I know several years later, we found the birth parents just 6 years ago. So we just met her 6 years ago. So anyway, I say that as an important part of who I am, and that continues to be a part of my intro. On the right-hand side, you see me. So here's the best part about the quote that my mother used to say to us all the time: you have to see it to be it. I used to imagine myself going across the world and visiting different countries and really seeing different people. And I continued to envision that for myself until it actually happened. I have been to every continent of the world with exceptions of Antarctica. The jacket that you see me wearing came from India, and it was one of my team members who felt like I had earned the right to wear the garb. And I am so excited and still privileged today to have relationships with those employees, and even for another company, but we are still very connected on social media. Okay, next slide. Okay, all right. So one of the things that my mother often said to us, and this is even before we knew it was Gandhi, keep in mind we come from Brinkley, Arkansas, very rural farmland. As far as you can see, you see corn and cotton. But my mother used to always say, be the change you want to see. Be exactly, Leslie, if you want to see the homeless, you want to see the homeless population housed, create housing. If you want to see, because I used to always ask the questions why. And I actually chose a master's degree in psychology based on some of the theories around, self theories and all of those things that are important for people when they're making decisions about their lives and their careers or even not making the right decisions. So be the change is one of our favorite quotes, and I thought I would use that here. I'm also a Hong Kong, a Kong fan, and so I watched this. This was just so gentle to me, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that. Okay, all right, next slide. Okay, so here's where we get into the grit of the program, and I want to just say this. I did a lot of research, looked through a whole lot of literature, and I wanted to bring out the best attributes. And of course, you're going to have from different authors that there are so many different things we should be holding on to as leaders and as folks who are considered highly successful. But there are just a few of these things that I believe hit home with me, and I want to share those with you today. The first is they have ambition. So when you think about highly successful women, they do not dream about being the best in their section or department. Their eyes are set on the best in the state or the country or even the world. Most want to change the world, and that's important. They are always positive. Successful women know how to deal with disappointment in a way that really keeps them from getting down and staying down. They know the future is bright. They're organized. They decide what they want to do, and they do it. Simple and organized. They establish boundaries, and they keep to those boundaries so that everything else in their lives operate effectively. They're constant learners. These women do not stay static. As the saying often goes, they will not allow grass to grow under their feet. They are continually improving themselves and use mentors and coaches to accelerate their improvement. And I always give an example of having either a personal or professional board of directors. So if you're looking to increase your awareness around a certain business sector, or if you're looking to go into a different career field, I would suggest establishing a personal board of directors and choosing folks from either those career fields or those business sectors to support your transition. Okay? Oftentimes, folks will ask me the question, Leslie, how did you do it? How did you end up going from being an HR professional to getting over into diversity and inclusion? Well, guys, I saw that there was a need, and I allowed my interest to become a passion. And I followed that passion. I started to attend conferences. I started to have conversations with leaders at very high levels. I started inserting myself into programs and, becoming keynote speakers for the topic and really involving other folks in the discussion so that I could learn as much as possible from those folks who were successful. And that's what I would suggest you do. Now, oftentimes, we create these mentors, but we don't follow up. We don't come to the mentor with an agenda. That's very important. You have to be intentional about being successful. Okay? They know failure and success go together. Guys, there are going to be times when the answer is no, okay? But the no doesn't mean no forever. It means not right now. That's the way I take it. It's not right now or even not you. So, from time to time, if I get a no from one person, I'll figure out how to socialize that no with someone else. And from my experience, I've been successful. So I would suggest, even if there is a no in the plans, it doesn't mean forever. It just means not right now or not that person. Okay? They remain grateful. All right? Now, here's the good thing about knowing who you are. You have been given opportunities of a lifetime, and sometimes you have to think about folks in your space. You have to consider the other folks in your space and some of the things that they're going through And I try to make sure that I am centrally focused around, especially my loved ones, but of course, anyone in my circle. I'm grateful for the skill sets they bring to the table. I'm grateful for their presence. I'm grateful for the time that we spend together. I am grateful for the opportunities that I've been given, because it could be so different. And so oftentimes, if you find yourself in a space of gratefulness, all great things will come to you. They work hard and persistently. Now, I can tell you over the last 6 weeks, it has not been a cakewalk. So transitioning to a new role, of course, this is a vice president officer's role. And yes, I've had vice president roles in the past, but this one is establishing a brand new COE. So that's a Center of Excellence for the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion space. So it's really bringing the entire organization along for the journey. This organization is anchored out of Canada, Calgary to be exact, with a corporate location in Loveland, Colorado, which is where I will relocate by in January of next year. But this organization is about $45 billion in revenue, so we're not talking small potatoes. And it really requires that we bring everyone along for the journey. It's in agriculture, so of course there's a very traditional theme that runs through the veins of agriculture, and especially when you're broaching the topic of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So there is so much more to come. I'm super excited. I'm establishing a team. I'm bringing folks along for the journey. I'm acting as though I'm grateful. I'm having to be extremely organized. I'm remaining positive, and I'm extremely ambitious, as you can see. Okay? They don't sweat the small stuff. So I can tell you that when I initially started with the organization, I remember someone talking about what was called a homework bag. And I thought to myself, my goodness, do you ever take a break? Do you ever, get off? And I had to ask myself the question, Leslie, what is it that what would you like to see? I mean, this role will require the above and beyond. This role will require the discretionary effort. And you can't take that lightly. And so if you find that your colleagues are working, in a way that says there is more work to do, you have to figure out what works best for you. But at some point, it would take us making some considerations for that. Okay? And then sweating the small stuff. So on the homepage, President was a lot of great feedback. So he released an article about, hey, Leslie Coleman is coming on board as our Vice President of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. We're so excited. This is our very first time erecting the space. And we had all of these wonderful comments from our employees. And then there was a gentleman at the base of the comments that said sellout. So they called Nutrien a sellout for hiring an African American and also for setting up a equity, diversity, and inclusion function. Now, why did I know, what that comment meant? Because this is not the first time in the agriculture space for me, and it wasn't my first experience. But this is what I said to the organization. Again, going back to don't sweat the small stuff. This is not about us reconciling his comments. It's not about us creating capabilities for him as much as it is about us creating capacity and capability inside of the organization. So really developing the capabilities to have those hard discretionary conversations, but sometimes are difficult conversations around respect and dignity in the workplace. Okay? They choose their battles wisely, okay? Successful women don't make a big deal about every little thing. But if there is a real problem, rest assured, they will have the courage to speak up and solve it within their sphere of influence. Now, I think there was a question on the line that talked about having these difficult conversations, and I believe Laura talked about the opportunity to lead. Guys, all of this is very true. It rings true to leaders who are courageous. You have to step out there. You have to have those conversations because you never know how it can start to change the culture. And I say this often, and I know you've probably heard this more times than not, but culture eats strategy any day. And I'll say that again. Culture eats strategy any day of the week. So you can have the best strategy known to man. You can go out and hire the best consultant and create the best strategic opportunities for very large-scale, publicly traded organizations, and yes, off to the races you go. But if your culture is not ready for the strategy, then your strategy is dead. It is very important that there is a sense of cultural readiness. There's a sense that preparing for the types of conversations, those difficult conversations that you want to start having in an organization, especially if the conversations are new, is important. Right now, I will tell you, we are under the largest racial divide we've ever seen in the history of the world, not just the U.S., but this is all over the world. We've never seen transformation like this in the space of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Now is the time for us to continue to have those positive conversations, positive more so than ever, because we've seen things like the Chauvin trial, where no matter how the trial went, there's going to be two sides to it. We've seen things like, of course, the actual death of George Floyd. You know, those things are really divisive. Those things have divided the world. And now it's time for us to figure out how to bring the world back together in a positive manner. And then finally, they have confidence. So there is not a day that has gone by in my career that I have not had to exercise some level of confidence in terms of either maintaining and controlling a boardroom discussion, having discussions with my peers in terms of how we execute, having discussions with my children in terms of how they execute. So confidence is very important. If you're highly successful or you're striving to be a highly successful woman, confidence comes with the territory. They should see you coming before you step in the room, and they should know that you were there after you leave. Okay? Next slide. So let's go through some of the more positive things that I believe wrap this story up. So the moral of this story is, it's personal. Most women who wear these traits were not born with silver spoons in their mouth. True, they're intelligent and focused, but they don't have superpowers. They have determination, vision, and purpose. Is the woman that I just described you? Next slide. Everybody has a story. If you don't know the story, you can't lead. Learn the story. Next slide. Here's my favorite quote. If you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. Oftentimes in my dialogue with folks, guys, amazing is my favorite word. There are a few words in the dictionary that I use often. Phenomenal, fantastic, amazing. All of those wonderful things help to elevate the voices of your colleagues, the voices of employees that report to you, the voices of your children. All of those words are synonymous with success. Use them. Okay, next slide. Okay, as we wrap up, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once wrote a speech that has become the soundbite for most everything we do in the space of equity, diversity, and inclusion. But one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King was the following: if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. Next slide. I wrap up with this. I have been, again, around the world heard the same story twice. Find your story. Find your story, tell your story, and walk in your success. Any questions? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Oh, of course. Well, it starts with, Alicia, very good question. Thank you for the question. You know, it starts with really understanding who you are and what you want to be. It really feels like, you know, sometimes we think of all the things we've gone through, but we don't think of how we've gone through those things and the tenacity in which we've used our strengths and our superpowers. We said we don't have superpowers, but I believe we do. We've had to use those things to really build on some of those things that have happened in our lives. And so I always take it from the perspective of having mentors to really feed into our lives and to make us better in terms of who we are. So it's, you know, having a mentor, it's asking those right questions with the mentor, coming prepared with an agenda with that mentor, so you start to grow, build, and develop confidence and character. You're welcome. You know what? I'll be honest with you. So I'm from Arkansas. I'm country every day, all day. And most of what you see is what you get with me. So I don't think so. I don't think I do. I've seen other folks do it. And I don't know. I would say authenticity is what you, is sort of your calling card. So if you're speaking to men differently, I would say adjust the language so that whatever they see in front of you, if you're speaking with a woman, shows up the same way when you're speaking with a man. I don't know that there is an actual need for me to change who I am when I'm speaking to men. Maybe you can give me some insight on some of the examples you've gone through that would require you make some adjustments. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Oh, my goodness. If only I could tell you my story. So I had as well a rocky start. You know, my goodness, we suffered from everything from death in my family members to, you know, my dad passing away when I graduated from college, the very day I graduated from college. You know, just some very difficult times in my personal life. But what sets me apart is the wind. So it's my story. I know what my story is. I know exactly who I want to be, and I race for it. One of the things that I encourage every woman on this phone in listening distance to do is continue to invest in yourself. I took this role, you know, as an officer of a $45 billion organization, and the very first thing I did, guys, was hired a speech coach. That's a personal investment for me. I hired a speech coach. I also hired a consulting firm to support everything from character building. I mean, so there's all sorts of, you know, I have an executive coach that I'm paying for out of my pocket. And so there's ways that you can establish yourself as a front runner, and there are ways that you can, you know, really drill into this is who I am and this is what I'm striving for, and actually achieve a sponsor. I had my sponsor raise his hand and say, hey, I'm your sponsor. And he's a senior vice president for FedEx right now, Shannon Brown. Very proud to talk about Shannon Brown. He's a man, by the way, and I think he received an invite to our program. He's actually one of the folks who pinged me to say, hey, you're on program. But he is an amazing gentleman. He's an amazing man who has served as a very instrumental part of my life, even after leaving FedEx, and that's probably over 8 years ago. We still keep in contact. We still have regular agenda items to share. We still do lunch. We still do whatever, just to ensure that I am pacing towards the right direction, and he is supportive. So I want to make sure that I leave you with that. Invest in yourself, no matter where you are, where you go, no matter how difficult your story. There's a whole lot of people, even though they didn't have bootstraps, because I hear this all the time. People will say, hey, pull yourself up from your bootstraps and get rolling. Well, some people didn't even have bootstraps, but they pulled themselves up anyway. Well, I think I was one of the ones that didn't have the bootstraps, but I created bootstraps, and I kept pulling myself up from those bootstraps that I created, and I continued to tell my story, and here I am. No, I want to say this. So I appreciate the time, but I am open to having conversations with any of these folks on the phone who would be interested in learning more. I can certainly tell you this. I may not have a lot of time, but the time that I will invest would be worth it. So if there's someone who wants to have follow-up conversations, I'm happy to do that. And I can be easily found on LinkedIn if you're interested. Thanks so much for the time today. I appreciate the opportunity.